They promise freedom, financial independence, healthy living, and a chance to be your own boss. Herbalife built a global empire selling that dream. But dig a little deeper and you'll find lawsuits, FBI investigations, and thousands of people who lost everything chasing it. So why is Herbalife still alive? In this video, we uncover the truth behind one of the most controversial business models of the 21st century and how it hides in plain sight. Herbalife isn't just selling shakes, it's selling a story, one that wraps nutrition in the glow of personal transformation. Their branding leans hard into three things: health, wealth, and freedom. You'll see lean bodies, smiling families, and entrepreneurs on tropical beaches. They call it a lifestyle, not a product. The message is that you're not just buying a supplement, you're buying the chance to rewrite your life. Work from anywhere, take control of your future, help others get healthy, and get rich while doing it. For anyone stuck in a job they hate or feeling invisible, it's an intoxicating message, especially when it comes from someone who claims they did it too. That's where the real hook lies, the personal success story. Meet the top Herbalife distributors. They're usually showcased at massive rallies, spotlights beaming, music pumping like a concert. There's often a luxury car involved, sometimes a Ferrari, sometimes a Tesla wrapped in Herbalife green. Their testimonials are emotional. I used to live paycheck to paycheck. Now I own 5 properties. These people are the dream, personified. Herbalife places them front and center as proof that the system works. They're not just salespeople. They're evangelists, mentors, walking billboards. Their lifestyle becomes the marketing. And because they look like ordinary people, immigrants, single moms, former teachers, it feels real. If they can do it, maybe you can too. That's the illusion. The pitch is never come sell diet shakes. It's join a movement. Herbalife recruiters talk about owning your time, building a legacy, and being part of something bigger. There's constant talk of residual income, that mythical idea where you work once and the money keeps flowing forever. You're not just signing up for a product, they say, you're entering a family. There's training, mentorship, WhatsApp groups, team challenges. You'll hear phrases like boss babe, wellness entrepreneur, freedom coach. Everything is phrased to sound empowering. It's carefully crafted to make the business feel like a personal growth journey, not a sales job. But behind the empowerment language is a very different economic reality. Why do people buy in? Part of it is hope, that this is finally their shot at control and success. But social science shows it's more than that. The sunk cost fallacy keeps people in even when they're losing money. They've already invested, so walking away feels like failure. The community gives constant validation. Weekly calls, motivational texts, success shoutouts. That sense of belonging triggers powerful psychological rewards, the same ones found in cult dynamics. And the system is built for incremental commitment. You start with a small product order, then more, then you recruit someone. Before you know it, your self-worth is tied to the hustle. That's how the trap tightens. Slowly, emotionally, and with your full participation. Herbalife doesn't market to the rich. Its core recruits are people with fewer options, immigrants chasing the American dream, stay-at-home parents looking for flexibility, workers burned out from low-wage jobs. These communities are targeted because they're aspirational, not cynical. Herbalife often positions itself as a ladder out of poverty, especially in Latino and African-American neighborhoods. In Spanish-language pitches, it's framed as a path to dignity and independence. That's not accidental. The company invests heavily in tailoring its message to each group's hopes and pain points. When you don't have access to capital, education, or strong job networks, something like Herbalife can look like a lifeline. And that's exactly what makes it so dangerous. At Herbalife events, you'll hear story after story of dramatic transformation. A former janitor is now financially free. A young mom bought her dream house. These testimonials are delivered with tears, standing ovations, and confetti. But they're carefully curated exceptions, not the rule. If you look closely at Herbalife's own earnings disclosures, the contrast is staggering. The majority of active distributors earn less than a few $100s a year before expenses. Nearly 99% make no sustainable profit. And somewhere, usually in small print at the bottom of the screen, Herbalife makes that clear, though most never notice it. The stories are real, but they're misleading. They create the illusion that success is typical, when statistically, it's nearly impossible. Once you're in, Herbalife wraps around you like a second skin. Weekly Zoom calls, daily motivational messages, team group chats. They call it support, but there's a deeper function, control. You're told that success is about mindset, that if you're struggling, you're not trying hard enough. Criticism is taboo. Skepticism means you're negative. People who quit are quitters, not cautionary tales. There's cheering at every rank up, pressure to post your progress online, and a constant refrain. Just follow the system. This creates a feedback loop where doubt feels like betrayal and losses are internalized as personal failures. It's not Herbalife that failed. You did. That message keeps people stuck, even when the numbers clearly say, this isn't working. Herbalife isn't some small-time American company. It's a global behemoth. It operates in over 90 countries, with billions in annual revenue. In some regions, it's nearly a household name, with storefronts, fitness clubs, and wellness centers all flying the Herbalife banner. You'll even see celebrity endorsements from soccer stars to influencers, lending legitimacy to the brand. That scale is part of what keeps it safe. When governments investigate, Herbalife adapts, tweaking policies, rewriting scripts, but keeping the core model intact. In countries with weaker consumer protections, the business grows even faster. It doesn't need to succeed in any one place. The churn just needs to continue everywhere, and that's the secret to its survival. Let's talk about Maria. She was a nurse's aide in Texas, raising 2 kids alone. She joined Herbalife after seeing a friend post about financial freedom. At first, she was cautious, just ordered a starter kit. Then came the meetings, the calls, the belief. She began recruiting, spent weekends at wellness boot camps, bought inventory on credit, convinced that the next month would turn things around. She lost money, slowly, then fast. But quitting felt impossible. Her team called her a leader. Her kids saw her trying. She kept thinking, I'm just one step away. Maria's story isn't rare. It's the emotional engine of the whole system. People like her don't fail because they're lazy. They fail because the game is rigged, but they don't know that. Not yet. A multi-level marketing company doesn't make most of its money from selling products to customers. Instead, the real engine is recruiting. You don't just sell shakes. You recruit people to sell shakes. And then they recruit more people. The more people below you, the more you theoretically earn from their purchases. But here's the problem. Each new recruit is also a customer. The real revenue comes from sellers buying products to qualify for commissions or rank advancement, not from consumer demand. This creates a structure where those at the top benefit from the constant churn below. Unlike a regular business, where success depends on sales to outside customers, MLMs depend on convincing insiders to keep buying, and that's where things start to fall apart. When you buy a protein bar at a grocery store, the company earns money from a real customer. But with Herbalife, the math is different. Most of its revenue doesn't come from outside consumers. It comes from its own distributors. The people buying the shakes are often the same ones selling them. And that's the twist. To stay active in the system, you have to keep purchasing products every month. Those purchases generate the billions Herbalife reports each year. Retail customers are optional. The real engine is internal consumption. So when Herbalife boasts global sales, it's not proof of demand. It's proof of how many people have bought into the dream and are paying for the privilege of trying to make it work. Joining Herbalife starts with a starter kit, around $100, but that's just the beginning. To qualify for commissions or move up the ranks, you're often encouraged to purchase a minimum amount of inventory every month. This is framed as investing in your business. There's also pressure to attend regional events, leadership retreats, and training seminars, many of which cost hundreds of dollars in travel, lodging, and tickets. Success stories often mention these events as the moment everything changed. So if you're not seeing results, the advice is usually to go to the next one. The total cost? It adds up fast. But the system doesn't track your losses, only your commitment. And commitment here is measured in dollars spent. There's a term for what happens when sellers buy product just to qualify for bonuses: inventory loading. In Herbalife, it's surprisingly common. Distributors are told to buy big to think big, encouraged to hit certain monthly volume targets that unlock higher commissions or status. The catch is, those purchases don't require proof of real sales. So people end up stockpiling boxes of shakes and supplements they can't move, just to maintain their rank or stay eligible for rewards. These purchases are often made on credit in hopes that they'll sell later. But for many, that day never comes. What's left is a garage full of product, a credit card bill, and the sinking feeling that the system was never designed for them to win. In many cities, you'll find small storefronts branded with bright Herbalife colors called nutrition clubs. They sell shakes, teas, and coaching, but they don't always function like legal businesses. Technically, Herbalife says its products aren't meant for retail cafes, so clubs operate in a gray area, often disguised as social spaces where members come for wellness support and pay donations. But in practice, these are informal Herbalife shake bars. For many distributors, running a club becomes the next level of buy-in, often involving rent, decor, equipment, and long hours. Some clubs succeed, many quietly shut down. Yet Herbalife benefits either way because the product is still moving and the risk always lands on the distributor. If you dig into Herbalife's own earnings statements, the reality is sobering. According to its U.S. income disclosure statement, more than half of all distributors earn nothing, not even $1. The median annual income among those who do earn is shockingly low, often less than $1,000 before expenses. That's not profit, that's gross income. And the top earners, the ones showcased at events, represent a fraction of a percent. These numbers are publicly available, but they're buried beneath the dream. Herbalife emphasizes effort and mindset, but the data tells a different story. The vast majority spend more than they make. It's not about how hard you work, it's about where you sit in the structure. Herbalife's business model has drawn scrutiny for years. In 2016, the Federal Trade Commission launched one of the most significant investigations in the company's history. The outcome was damning. The FTC accused Herbalife of deceiving consumers about the potential to earn money and found that its compensation structure rewarded recruiting over retail sales. But despite the harsh language, the FTC stopped just short of calling Herbalife a pyramid scheme. That legal line matters because it meant Herbalife could survive with conditions. Other lawsuits have followed, both in the US and abroad, often brought by former distributors who lost thousands. But so far, the company has stayed one step ahead of being dismantled completely. As part of the 2016 FTC ruling, Herbalife agreed to pay $200 million in restitution, a massive figure that acknowledged real financial harm to tens of thousands of sellers. But the settlement came with strings attached. Herbalife was forced to restructure its U.S. operations, implementing new compliance measures, earnings disclosures, and rules requiring proof of real retail sales. In theory, these changes were meant to curb the worst abuses. In practice, critics say the company found ways to adapt without altering its core. Many of the reforms only applied to U.S. sales, while Herbalife's global empire continued under older playbooks. So while it took a public hit, the company survived and learned how to operate more carefully without changing much. After the FTC settlement, Herbalife adjusted its language. Gone were the bold promises of financial freedom and flashy recruiting pitches. In their place, wellness, fitness, and personal health. The narrative shifted from join the business to join the lifestyle. But behind the new branding, the machine kept humming. Distributors were still encouraged to recruit. Volume-based incentives remained. And internal consumption, distributors buying product to stay active, continued to drive sales. The messaging evolved, but the mechanics stayed largely intact. This rebranding made it harder for regulators to pin down deceptive practices. After all, what's wrong with selling healthy shakes in a community of like-minded people? It was the same system, just wearing a different face. Why wasn't Herbalife shut down? The answer lies in the gray space between aggressive marketing and outright fraud. The legal definition of a pyramid scheme is narrow. It requires proof that recruitment, not product sales, is the primary source of income. But if a company can argue that its products have value and are being consumed, even by its own distributors, it can thread the needle. Add in powerful lobbying, a complex compensation plan, and an international presence, and enforcement becomes even harder. Regulators may see the harm, but unless the law is crystal clear, companies like Herbalife remain legally defensible. It's not that no one noticed, it's that the rules, as written, allow it to persist. Let's go back to Maria. By now she's thousands in debt. Her nutrition club closed, her team has gone quiet, but she hasn't quit. Not fully. Why? Because walking away means admitting she was wrong, that she was misled, that all those months of hope, energy, and sacrifice were for nothing. And that's a hard pill to swallow. Psychologists call it cognitive dissonance, the painful clash between belief and reality. So instead of quitting, she clings to the story, maybe next month, maybe with a new strategy. The system doesn't need her to succeed, just to believe long enough to keep buying. And in that belief lies Herbalife's deepest, most resilient source of power. Over the years, many have tried to sound the alarm. Former distributors like Wendy and Kevin told their stories of debt and disillusionment. Industry watchdogs like Robert Fitzpatrick have dissected the numbers, arguing that Herbalife fits every classic marker of a product-based pyramid, and in 2012, billionaire hedge fund manager Bill Ackman bet $1 billion against the company, calling it a fraud. His campaign triggered massive media coverage and government scrutiny, but Herbalife fought back hard, launching a PR offensive, hiring high-profile allies, and eventually outlasting the pressure. Ackman lost his bet, but the critics didn't disappear. They've simply become part of a growing chorus, asking the same question: how is this still legal? In 2012, Wall Street turned into a battleground. Bill Ackman, a billionaire hedge fund manager, publicly declared Herbalife a fraud, calling it a pyramid scheme and shorting $1 billion of its stock. He didn't just make a bet, he went on a crusade. Ackman gave press conferences, released investigations, and tried to rally regulators. But then came Carl Icahn, another billionaire, who saw Ackman's attack as both personal and financial. Icahn started buying Herbalife stock, eventually becoming one of its largest shareholders. What followed was a high-stakes, ego-fueled feud. CNBC turned it into a soap opera. The public watched two titans clash, but in the end, neither side focused on the real victims, the people losing their savings chasing a dream they were told was real. After years of public fighting, Ackman quietly exited his Herbalife short in 2018. He didn't win. Herbalife's stock had survived the lawsuits, the FTC settlement, and even a billionaire campaign against it. Wall Street, it turned out, didn't care much about ethics, only earnings. As long as Herbalife remained profitable, as long as it could point to revenue and a global customer base, investors saw it as legitimate. The moral debate was brushed aside. In fact, Herbalife's stock surged after the dust settled. It was a lesson in what markets reward, not fairness or accountability, but resilience and returns. And in that sense, Herbalife proved bulletproof. It didn't need to convince everyone, just enough to keep the machine running. Today, despite everything, the lawsuits, investigations, exposés, Herbalife still recruits, still sells, still holds up the dream of a better life. New distributors sign up every day. They watch the same videos, hear the same promises, attend the same hype-filled events, and they leave with the same hope that they'll be the one to beat the odds. But the math hasn't changed. The structure hasn't changed. Most will lose money, just like before, but they won't realize it until it's too late. Herbalife doesn't need to change its model, because every few years, a new wave of people walks in, believing this time will be different. The trap doesn't break, it just resets. Herbalife's survival isn't just about marketing. It's about technicality. The company sells real products. No one is forced to join. On paper, it's all voluntary. That's the genius of it. It walks the legal tightrope with perfect balance. As long as it sells something tangible, and as long as distributors aren't required to recruit, it's not technically a pyramid scheme. The fact that recruitment is where the real money lies, that most sales are internal, those are gray areas, not red lines. This legal structure allows Herbalife to operate with plausible deniability. Regulators can frown, but unless the law changes, companies like this can keep operating without ever having to admit what they really are. MLMs like Herbalife thrive in the cracks of the system. They're not quite franchises, not quite traditional businesses, not quite illegal scams. The FTC regulates them, but only loosely. The SEC rarely gets involved. The FDA doesn't oversee business models. And Congress? Often lobbied heavily by MLM interests. So these companies fall into a kind of regulatory Bermuda Triangle. That's why, despite decades of warnings and watchdog reports, the MLM industry keeps growing. No single agency claims full responsibility, and no consistent standard exists to shut them down. This fragmentation allows companies to reinvent, rebrand, and resume, while the people hurt by them are left wondering where to turn. The system isn't broken. It was never built to handle this. Perhaps the most effective defense Herbalife has isn't legal or financial, it's psychological. When distributors fail, they don't usually blame Herbalife. They blame themselves. They think they didn't work hard enough, didn't believe deeply enough, didn't follow the plan. That shame keeps them silent. It isolates them, and it prevents them from warning others. MLM culture reinforces this idea. If you're not succeeding, it's your fault, not the model, not the math. This internalized failure makes the system nearly self-sustaining. People don't sue, they don't speak out, they just disappear, quietly, with debt and disappointment. And that silence is what allows the next wave of hopefuls to enter, still believing the dream is real. Herbalife doesn't just sell shakes. It sells hope to people caught in economic quicksand. In cities hollowed out by layoffs and rural towns left behind by progress, the promise of being your own boss sounds like salvation. Add in the gig economy's instability, rising costs of living, and the erosion of traditional middle-class jobs, and suddenly Herbalife's pitch seems less like a fantasy and more like a lifeline. This is where MLMs thrive, in the cracks left by a failing economic system. People aren't irrational for signing up. They're reacting to scarcity, to pressure, to the fear of falling behind. Herbalife doesn't invent that desperation. It exploits it. And the worse the economy feels, the better the business gets. Herbalife has always been a shapeshifter. When Get Rich from Home started sounding suspicious, it pivoted. Out went the old marketing. In came fitness coaches, TikTok influencers, and bright, upbeat messaging about wellness. The products didn't change much, but the vibe did. Now, instead of business seminars and hotel ballrooms, you might see healthy lifestyle challenges on Instagram or micro celebs mixing Herbalife shakes on Reels. It's less about money, more about community, confidence, glow-ups. But behind the filtered content and motivational hashtags, the mechanics stay the same. You buy, you recruit, and you try to rise up a ladder that was never built for most people to climb. As scrutiny increased in the US, Herbalife expanded its focus abroad, especially in Latin America, Asia, and parts of Africa. In these markets, regulation tends to be lighter, and the need for economic opportunity even greater. In some places, Herbalife is seen not just as a side hustle, but as a serious path out of poverty. The dream travels well, and in many regions, it's paired with community events, religious undertones, and even government partnerships. But the model remains the same. New sellers funding the machine with their own wallets. The profits may be global, but the losses are often deeply personal, especially in places where losing a few $100s can mean real hardship. Let's return to the seller we met earlier, the one who joined with energy, hope, and a belief in the system. After a year of chasing leads, attending events, and pouring every spare dollar into inventory, reality hit hard. No profits, only bills. The friends she recruited had quietly dropped off. The family she'd leaned on was growing skeptical, and the shame? Heavy. But eventually, she stopped. She boxed up the unsold product, canceled her auto ship, and walked away. Not with a dramatic takedown or a viral post, just a quiet, painful reckoning. She didn't just lose money, she lost time, self-trust, and a little piece of hope. And for her, that was the hardest part to let go of. Why do smart, hardworking people fall for systems like Herbalife? Because the desire for a better life isn't naive. It's human. It's not foolish to want freedom, purpose, or stability. What's tragic is when those dreams are weaponized against the very people who need them most. Herbalife thrives not because people are gullible, but because people are hopeful, and because society offers them so few real options. The lesson isn't to stop hoping. It's to be more skeptical of those who promise easy answers to hard problems. Real opportunity should be measured not by hype, but by fairness. Not everyone who dreams big gets scammed, but scams almost always start by appealing to a dream. So what could change? For starters, income disclosures that are honest and upfront, not buried in fine print. Stricter definitions of what counts as a pyramid scheme. Independent audits of who's actually buying the products, real customers or just struggling sellers. Education, too, plays a role. Financial literacy that includes warning signs of exploitative business models could help prevent future losses. And regulators, they need sharper tools and fewer loopholes. Because right now, the line between legitimate business and legalized exploitation is too easy to blur. Until that changes, Herbalife, and others like it, will keep dancing right on the edge of legality. In the end, Herbalife is just one story, but it points to something larger, a system where narrative often beats reality, where selling the dream of independence is more profitable than actually providing it, where corporations tap into our deepest fears and our deepest hopes and turn them into business models. This isn't just about Herbalife, it's about the economic structures that create fertile ground for these schemes. It's about the cultural hunger for control, dignity, and upward mobility, and the lack of credible paths to get there. Until we address those root issues, the cycle won't stop. The mask may change, the name may change, but the trap will remain. What Herbalife sells isn't just shakes, it's hope. And that hope comes at a price. As long as inequality exists and people are desperate for a better future, companies like Herbalife will thrive, not in spite of the truth, but because the truth is just hard enough to ignore. The best protection isn't regulation alone, it's understanding. When you know how the dream is sold, you're less likely to be sold out by it. Thanks for sticking with this story. If it hit close to home or challenged how you think about success and survival, consider subscribing. We explore the systems behind the slogans. Have you ever felt pressured to chase a dream that didn't deliver? Why do you think companies like this still thrive even when the truth is out? Drop a comment. I read them all. And if this story left you thinking, the next one's for you. How Walmart reshaped small-town America, one empty storefront at a time. Same playbook, different costume.